So what we're doing is we're doing our geometry word problems today. So you have to remember with our geometry word problems, we're dealing with perimeter. And I reminded you up here, perimeter just means you have to add up all of your sides. So no matter how many sides you have, you're adding all of them up. If you got a pentagon, you're adding all 5 sides. If you have a triangle, you're adding all 5 sides. So then this box right here, this is just basically reviewing what we went over last time. You need to write a let statement to identify what is your variable. Biggest thing though is you need to make sure you read carefully. I saw a lot of people making little mistakes because you didn't actually answer the entire question. You got an answer, but there was usually 2 answers that were required. So let's take a look at our examples down here. Our first one, we have the length of a rectangular garden is 3 yards more than twice its width. The perimeter of the garden is 36 yards. What are the length and width of the garden? So since this is talking about a rectangle, we want to draw a picture of a rectangle. So have you guys go ahead and draw your rectangle in there. Just like our other word problems, there's always going to be something in the problem that is just an X. So it says the length of the garden is 3 more than twice its width. My width is mentioned last, so the width of my rectangle is my X. Remember, everyone's mentioned last. So the length is 3 yards more than twice its width. So twice its width would be 2x. Twice tells us to multiply times 2. And then 3 more than tells us we need to add 3. Remember, your more than, less than are the ones that tell you to switch the order. So as we set up above, perimeter means you have to add up all of the sides. So I'm just going to start up at the top. I'm going to do 2x plus 3. Then I'm going to go clockwise to my next side plus my x. Down to the bottom plus 2x plus 3. Over to my last side plus my x. Just went right around my rectangle, adding them all up. That's going to give us a 36. They told us the perimeter was 36. So now we just have to combine our like terms. 2x plus 1x plus 2x plus 1x. How many x's do we have? 6. So we have 6x plus what? We got a 3 and a 3 plus a 6. So 6x plus 6 equals 36. Then you guys are really good at solving these. Subtract your 6 over. So I get 6x equals 30. Divide by 6. What does x equal? X equals 5. So x equals 5, that's one of our sides. That's the width of our rectangle. But remember, we have to figure out what our length is. We had our 2x plus 3 here. So I've just got to plug my 5 in for x to figure out what the length of our rectangle is. So what do we get when we do 2 times 5 plus 3? 13. So as we did last time, if you're given the problem in words, you need to answer the problem in words. But the other thing we have to make sure we pay attention to are the units. We have to write them. So the length is 13 yards. And the width is 5 yards. And you have to pay attention to those units because there's problems where one part of the problem they're talking about it in feet, and then another part of the problem they're talking about in inches, so you have to convert between feet and inches. It's not just a typo. Your picture is your let statement at this point in time. It's a good question. Some kids draw the picture and still want to write the let statements on top of it, so if you want to, go right ahead, but your picture can count as that. All right, number 2. We have a triangle has a perimeter of 165 centimeters. The first side is 65 centimeters less than twice the second side. Third side is 10 centimeters less than the second side. Write and solve an equation to find the length of each side of the triangle. So what shape should we be drawing here? A triangle. I'm going to make this one orange. there's my triangle. Now in the problem, they refer to a first side, a second side, and a third side. So I'm just going to go ahead inside my triangle and label my first, second, and third side. Doesn't matter which one you label as 1, 2, 3. Just put that label on there. It makes it a little easier when we go to write our sides here. So it says the first side is 65 centimeters less than twice the second. My second side is mentioned last. There's my x. So now the first side is 65 centimeters less than, so that means it's going to be minus 65. Less than is one of our ones that changes order. So it's 65 centimeters less than twice the second. What would twice the second look like? 2x. So we got 2x minus 65. That's our first side. The third side is 10 centimeters less than the second side. So again, I'm going back to my second side. What would 10 centimeters less than this look like? X minus 10. All three of our sides are labeled. We're told the perimeter is 165 centimeters, so I'm just going to add them. My first side plus my second side plus my third side equals 165. So I'm going to give you guys a minute. I want you to solve that one on your own. Solve for x. Did everybody get x equals 60? I did that wrong. So our second side is going to be 60 because this side is 60. Our x is 60. What would our first side be? 55. 2 times 60 minus 65 would be 55. What would our third side be? 50. So what's the other thing I need here? A sentence. Yes, they asked us in a sentence. We have to answer in a sentence. The sides are 55 centimeters, 60 centimeters, and 50 centimeters. Again, don't forget your units. They gave us units here. If they didn't tell us centimeters throughout the whole problem, do you guys remember what you would write? You would write the word units. So you would have called it 55 units, 65 units, 60 units. All right, let's take a look at the next page. Talking about our consecutive integers. So if I give you the numbers, generally you guys are really, really good at figuring this out. -5, -4, -3, what would come next? And then -1. What are we adding each time? 1. So our consecutive integers are just numbers that come in order, one right after another. You're increasing by 1. So in terms of our algebra, x would be your first integer, x plus 1, and then x plus 2 is how we would write it using x's. Now if we change it up a little bit, we do consecutive integers, consecutive even integers, so like 20, 22, what will come next? 24. And then 26. What are we adding each time? 2. We're going up by 2's this time. So when we throw that word even in there, that means we're going up by 2. So in terms of x's, it would be x, x plus 2, and x plus 4. You keep adding 2. So then we would have x plus 6, x plus 8. We had to keep going that high. Consecutive odd integers. Again, we have -5, -3, -1. What would come next? 1. And then 3. Again, what are we adding? Plus 2 each time. Even though it's odd numbers, you still have to add 2 to get you to that next odd number. That 2 skips over the even and goes to the odd. So in terms of our x's, it would be just like our evens. X, x plus 2, and x plus 4. So our consecutive integers differ by 1. Our consecutive even and odd integers differ by 2. Those are always going up by 2's. Just consecutive up by 1's, even or odds up by 2's. So here are some examples of questions that they like to ask sometimes involving our evens and odds and our consecutive integers. We're told that x plus 3 represents an integer. Then the next consecutive integer would be what? So we have to remember, consecutive integers go up by ones. So if I add a 1 to that, my next consecutive integer would be x plus 4. Because 3 plus 1 would give us a 4. So example 5, we have x minus 4 is an odd integer. They want to know the next consecutive odd integer. So odd integers means we add how many? 2. So negative 4 plus 2 would give us x minus 2. So then x plus 2 is an odd integer. What would be the next even integer? It would not. They tricked you this time. X plus 2 is odd. They want the next even. So they're asking you just for the consecutive integer. So you got to do x plus 2 and then add 1 to it. So we would get x plus 3 would be the next even integer. Yeah, you got to be careful with those. They like to trick you. So when it comes to our word problems, our let statements will go as follows. If they're just talking consecutive integers, it would be x, x plus 1, x plus 2, because consecutive integers just go in order, even, odd, even, odd, even, odd. They want the consecutive even or odd integers, though. Those would go x, x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, x plus 8 if you had to keep going. For today, we have find 2 consecutive integers whose sum is 85. So 2 consecutive integers means we need to have 2 let statements. A let statement for each integer. What is always our first one? X. So we're going to say let x equal first integer.
Would it be first consecutive integer?
You could write that. You don't have to, though. Now they're just consecutive, so what would our second one be? Very good, x plus 1. So there's our first part, our let statements. We always need to write our let statements. That's defining our variable. What are we looking for? So now they're telling us to find the sum. Sum means we do what with our 2 numbers? Add them. So our first integer plus our second integer equals 85. So our x plus our x plus 1 equals 85. All right, let's have you go ahead and solve that one. That one's an easier one to solve. So if x is 42, what's our other integer? 43. We got to add the 1 to it. So we just need a sentence. The integers are 42 and 43. Okay, so number 2, we have find 3 consecutive even integers such that 8 more than the third is twice the first, which I know all of that together sounds really confusing. So we got to go one step at a time. 3 consecutive even integers. There's our let statement. So our first one is x because our first one is always x. So let x equal the first integer. So we need 2 more let statements because we have 3 integers, so 3 let statements. What's our second number, Seth? X plus 2, they're even integers.
Wait, so what about the last one? Wouldn't you just assume that it's an even integer if it says that let 2 consecutive integers? Really?
Really?
Oh my god.
So then what would our third integer be? X plus 4. So now, some of these problems, what they do is they go back and they refer to like the smallest and the largest, which I know this one doesn't. But your smallest one would be the first one. Your largest number would be the last one. This one a lot of times they refer to as the middle integer because it's the one in the middle between the other two. So you just have to keep in mind because they like to use those words. So I'm just helping you out a little bit with your other stuff later. Okay, here we go. 8 more than the third. So our third integer was what? X plus 4. We're going to add 8 to it because it said 8 more than the third. So that means take my third integer, add 8. Is, there's our equal sign, twice the first. So what would twice the first look like? 2x. So let's have you guys go ahead and solve that one. Solve for x. So our first integer is 12. What would our second integer be? 14. And our third? 16. So then you just got to remember to go back and write your sentence. The integers are 12, 14, and 16. Got one more. So we're finding 3 consecutive odd integers such that the sum of the first and the third is 37 more than the second. So again, we got to just go a little slowly, go through each part. 3 consecutive odd integers. How many let statements? 3. Good. Our first one is always x. So let x equal first integer. This time we're doing odds. So what would our next integer be? X plus 2. Because remember, even though they're odds, you still add 2 to skip you to that next odd number. And then our third, x plus 4. I was thinking 4 because it's plus 4. All right, so x plus 2, x plus 4. So for our equation, the sum of the first and the third. So sum tells me I'm going to add these. My first integer is x plus my third integer is x plus 4 is, so that is my equal sign, 37 more than the second. How would we write 37 more than the second? You could put the 37 first. Or you could write x plus 2 plus 37. Our commutative property allows us to change that. So we just need to solve for x. So 2x plus 4
I got it.
equals x plus 39. You think you have it.
He's right.
Yep, x should be 35. So that means our first integer is 35. What's our second integer? 37 and then 39. So you just need your sentence. The integers are 35, 37, and 39.